Okay, now we are going to have Slido. Yeah, there we go. So if you have questions during the talk, we're going to have breaks that we're going to take questions, maybe in the first 20 minutes. Go to slido.com and type in hashtag growth colony. And over there, you could enter your questions. You can also have a look at the other people's questions and whether give it a thumbs up. The best questions go at the top, and we'll make sure to ask them and answer those questions. So go to slido.com, hashtag growth colony, put your questions over there. I will open up the floor to get some questions from the audience as well, just a couple of sneaky ones. So feel free to, if you're feeling adventurous, raise your hand, we'll grab your question. So without further ado, let's jump in. Maybe I'll start the first question. You're holding the mic, Mitchell.
Sure.
Let's start the first question with revenue marketing. It's a fairly new term. Mm-hmm. What is it? What does revenue marketing mean?
No, it's relevant marketing. It's aligning the marketing ambitions with directly the business goals, which is fundamentally about growth, about generating sustainable organic growth, and ensuring that you are earning your seat at the proverbial table with the C-level colleagues, with the B-level colleagues, and you're demonstrating that marketing is a key driver, in fact, in many cases today, the principal driver of fundamental organic growth, that you've got your orchestration act together across all the multiple channels, you're influencing the end-to-end customer experience, and you're contributing in a very real way. You're not the pretty pictures, long lunch department that classically sales guys typically think of as marketing, with a bit of sales collateral thrown in.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, marketing sometimes is looked at like the party throwers of the company. And Natalie, I want to ask you the last question. Why is it now? Why is revenue marketing relevant now? I'll try to come a little bit forward so I can see you as well. But why revenue marketing now? Why is it all of a sudden relevant for marketers, or I don't know if it's possible for marketers to talk about revenue? Why is it a slightly hotter than usual topic?
It shouldn't be. It should be what they should have taught you at university, to be honest. But instead they made it so glamorous that you felt like, going in and working for a colouring in department. Revenue marketing is exactly what they should be teaching you at university. It is what marketing is about, the sales alignment process, learning how to target the audience to generate the outcome you need. And the outcome from a marketing perspective is revenue and brand awareness. That's pretty much what marketing is.
Gotcha. Thank you. Now, there are three main topics that I want to cover today. One is to talk about or maybe three areas when it comes to revenue marketing. One is the internal work that marketers go through within their own department. Then there is the interaction that they have with the sales department. And lastly is the communication that they have with the C-level and the B-level, the board and the CEO and the C-level executives. So maybe let's start from the last point, Mark. If you could shed some light on that, tell us a little bit about the communication that marketers need to have towards the CEOs and the board that makes marketing less of an expense and more of an investment in a revenue-generating department.
Yeah. Firstly, I'll provide a bit of context here. So, my two colleagues here will be infinitely more experienced than I in talking about a lot of the areas of marketing, but I'm a management consultant, so I'm having a lot of conversations at a board level with C-level and understanding how businesses are changing and changing the way they're thinking, particularly at an organisational design level. So how are we designing our organisation and the capabilities and the resources that we need, both from people and systems level, to be able to achieve our long-term strategic objectives. And what I can say is, look, I'm a big proponent. I'm a big believer in human-centered design and customer experience and all those kinds of things. But I think why revenue-based marketing has become so critically important recently and how it's starting to change is the fact that there's almost been a religious-based kind of view around the customer. And what that means is that there's been a lot of initiatives that have gone into play that essentially are losing money. They don't actually drive revenue. And I think the critical thing here is here, how are we connecting every piece of activity to something that has a tangible result? Now, I think that's critical. But what I would also say, and what I'm hearing a lot at the moment, is, okay, we've spent a lot of money on technology, we spent a lot of money on marketing metrics and modelling, and making sure that we've got transparency around that. How is this helping us build long-term brand value? And I'm hearing that come up a lot more, which to me is signalling a big shift in the market, where there's been a lot of just, we don't really know where we're going and where we're heading, and let's try a lot of new things out. And as a result, marketing was very tactically focused, just short term, to now, hang on, no, we've settled down on a new model, and we really have to build long-term brand value, because that's the critical element that's part of our strategy.
Gotcha. And it's an interesting segue into the next question that I have, because I know you've mentioned Ansel is becoming a lot more focused on the customer, right? And that was one of the things that you just mentioned. How does that contribute? You know, being focused on a customer, how does that contribute to revenue?
The basis is that if you're not delivering a differentiated, positively contrasted experience, then you're just another supplier. In our case, we're a pure B2B play, healthcare safety and industrial safety. We used to do condoms, but sadly, or maybe not, we sold that business off a little while ago. And we've come to the realization, of course, like most businesses, if you're just selling a product and expecting features and benefits to win the day, old school approach. It was a bit similar to Daimler, my previous company, just brief the engineers to build the best next generation car that they possibly could, throw it over the wall and it would sell itself. And that's not the case. Ansel, in its own niche in healthcare safety and industrial safety, has had the view as well that we're vertically integrated. We R&D our own products, or most of them, produce them, manufacture them ourselves, and that'll win the game, and that's not the case. You've got to have that full 360-degree view. And for us, that's very, very, very challenging. It's a massive change management issue. It's an organizational re-engineering exercise. I think most businesses, most companies today will walk that talk about being customer first, but very few are really doing it in a meaningful way that connects to revenue, that drives real double-digit organic growth where everyone wants to be.
Gotcha. Thank you so much. Let's get in the weeds. I have a question for you, Natalie. I got a question for you. Let's get in the weeds. A marketer today wants to become revenue focused. Where do I start? You know, what is the blueprint of me becoming revenue focused?
Is this the choose your own adventure?
This is a little bit of that. Yeah, there are a couple of routes we can go down, but what's the starting point for the basics?
Depends on where you're at in your career, or if you're starting out. In my opinion, so I've been lucky. I've always had mentors or worked with marketing leaders have been strongly focused on revenue as the outcome and brand awareness. So you'll hear me speak a lot about those two things. For me, it's actually just breaking it down. A lot of marketers, and Mark touched on this a bit, chase the latest fads, the latest technology. No disrespect to you, Mark, but the latest MarTech stack, etc. And then we also try and make up marketing metrics to either justify the MarTech stack or to actually make it sound like we're doing a heap of work. One of the things I always say to my team is to learn the metrics that are relevant to the business. So an example is the business really only looks at revenue, expenses, and profit. Yeah? And yet from a marketing perspective, we talk about marketing initiated, marketing funded, marketing generated. We talk about marketing engaged. We talk about share of voice. We talk about a ton of stuff that the business really doesn't either understand or cares about. So with my team, we talk about marketing initiated revenue. So what is the campaign that you've run that's that's resulted in someone coming to the website or someone calling us or someone, chatting with us and saying, I want to speak to a consultant. And then the result of that outcome is what we measure. Everything else, marketing engage, etc., marketing funded, I just put that in the brand bucket. If you're a business and you don't put aside some of your marketing money to do brand awareness, who's going to know about your brand? If you go in and do a pitch, you're going to spend the first 10 minutes telling them about your brand when the next person that's got a brand has an extra 10 minutes on you telling them how good they are. So for me, it comes down, Shaheen, to getting the metrics right. So brand, it's debatable. I'm happy to have a debate about brand, and I can tell you a story about that, but we don't really measure brand where I've worked, and I've never really rated it. I certainly measure brand marketing initiated, and then I measure what we call marketing conversion. So how many leads did sales accept? Not how many did we send. How many leads did sales accept? And how many did they convert? And won. That's pretty much what we report to our executive team and then to the board.
Going in that journey, I just wanted to do a follow-up question on that. Going through that journey, what was, where did you, what was the biggest challenge at the beginning to make that adjustment? Or was that mindset in place from the beginning to take that step forward and make that adjustment for those metrics?
So from a business perspective, it was really easy because they were like, thank God, she's come in, there's 15 metrics, we've now got 2. Yeah. From a marketing perspective, so my global marketing leadership team didn't like me very much because I was now just really throwing everything out the door and just, I threw MQLs out the door, I threw away the lead scoring model because it didn't work for us. For those of you that are starting out and trying to figure out lead scoring, if it doesn't work for you, it really should just be thrown out. Don't try and make it work.
I'm gonna talk about lead scoring a lot more. So okay. Hold that one. Cool. What about you, Michelle? What are your thoughts on the metrics? Because just to add something, I remember one of the very first clients that I had, and the kind of the business owner became a bit of a mentor. I remember one of the things that he used to say, it wasn't a massive company, 100 or so employees. One of the things that I would go in and talk about marketing, and he's like, "You're talking to me about effort. I don't care about effort. I want to see results. Talk to me about results. I don't care about how many blog posts we put out, or how many what kind of ads and what platform are we running. I don't care about that. Give me results." Now his attitude was extremely revenue driven. But what is your take on that?
No, I've heard Natalie's with her position on this before several times, and I 100% agree. Indeed, you've had significant influence. We have fallen into the trap of being focused on MQLs, marketing qualified leads, and big debate with the sales organisation about what's going wrong with the conversion ratios. And you're absolutely right. What's the number of sales accepted leads, SALs, and what's happening to the conversion ratio after they get converted into an opportunity and are in the pipeline? That's critical. I think it's huge, game-changing perspective if you just keep it simple and simplify, standardise, and I'm as guilty as anyone chasing a shiny new toy and thinking how interesting it could be to the business. But in reality, most times it's going to add complexity. You're not ready for it. We could talk at great length about what AI could do for transforming marketing, but for the vast majority of us, our data quality is nowhere near where it needs to be for any kind of AI tool from any of the vendors to really make a significant difference. And getting those basics right, like the plumbing, the data quality, is a huge issue and a huge focus. It's a hairball of it often, and you've got to be prepared to fix those basics and to have very clear, simple metrics. 100% agree. We've been working on what we call the marketing analytics dashboard project, and that's to be transparent, just become far too complex and taken too long to get to any real meaningful point. And there's a lot of to be said for, as I said earlier, simplify, standardise, and align with the sales colleagues in particular and the C-level around the core growth marketing initiated leads that are going to translate. What are you doing for recurring revenue? Try and keep it as simple as you can.
Gotcha. Okay. On that note, Mark, I want to ask you a question. One of the points that we spoke about previously was on the topic of, hey, how do I as a marketer make sure that we're viewed as an investment and a revenue generating department versus a cost. And even though changing the language is important, and making sure that you're speaking the language of the board and the CEO is important. One of the points that you raised is that you got to understand also what kind of CEO you have, right? And the types of CEOs that are out there, where some CEOs might have different initiatives. Do you want to maybe shed some light on that?
Yeah, sure. So I mean, it depends on the type of organisation, but CEOs are brought in usually with a particular mandate. And usually a particular time frame. This is not always the case, but quite often. And you might have a stabilization CEO who's coming in to stabilize the business and understand and simplify things down. Or you might have a growth-orientated CEO. You might have an innovation-orientated CEO. So what is their mandate? And then how are you going to then tie, we're talking about metrics and data. How do we tie that back to a report that the CEO and the rest of the executive team can read and make decisions on quickly? Because if they can't make decisions quickly and they get lost in it, then it's going to be basically the prioritization of that's going to get forced all the way down. And I think that's the absolute key, is really understanding where the strategic drive is inside the organization. And I think, saying before, you were talking before about simplifying those reports and getting them really, really easy. It's so vital. Again, if you're not really good at working with all that data yourself, get a really good analyst in for a period of time, understand what data is there, understand what data you need to clean up, think about what your maturity model is going to look like over a period of years. Because if you can't do that and you can't communicate through those reports simply, the organization is going to put huge pressure on you for just short-term tactical wins. And if that happens, then all you're doing is then talking about the next quarter, the next quarter. You get caught up in shiny things, you look for silver bullets, and that long-term sustainability that you were speaking of before just becomes completely unattainable. So, that's...
And a lot of times that becomes dangerous to the marketer's life. I think you mentioned that, Mitchell, before, where marketers, when we are making that decision to become, again, revenue focused, it's really important to look at some quick wins.
Yes.
However minute they might be, but marketers need to get some buy-in and show some results in order to get more investment, whatever it's time or whatever it is. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes,
as well?
You've got to build credibility. So yes. The proverbial quick wins have to be delivered within a credible time frame. You're talking 60, 90, 120 days in the context of your long-term agenda. But if you're saying, hey, we're on a transformation, we're upending marketing, we're going to be revenue focused, but in 18, 24, 36 months' time, that's just not going to cut it. You've got to fix the proverbial plane while it's still flying, get out there on the wings, change the engines over, and not crash. And keep going forward into delivering positive momentum and not getting thrown out yourself without a parachute, which is no fun.
It does happen from time to time for us. Natalie, what has been the biggest? There's one thing that you mentioned previously. What has been something that you've changed within the way you run a marketing team that has had the most impact when it comes to showing value to the organization?
There's a brilliant quote, actually. It's in my office. And it's, don't mistake activity for achievement. So that's what I think I've changed. When I got in, we were doing, 38 events a year. There's only 12 months. 38 events for 2,000 odd clients is a lot of, beef or chicken. We were doing a lot of, I'll just throw this MQL over the fence. I don't really know what they're asking, but I'll just throw it anyway, and hopefully Mitchell in the sales department will figure it out. Yeah, so for me, it's staying focused on the right things and the things that matter.
Gotcha. And there was one thing that you also mentioned where you touched on it briefly, where you started qualifying the leads. Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so depending on big or small your team, so we don't just throw MQLs over the fence anymore. We have someone who probably spends 2 to 3 hours a day, depending on how many leads we get, qualifying them. And the qualifying process takes 10 to 15 minutes. So they check Mercer Force. Sorry, I have boffins at my work, so they call Salesforce Mercer Force, and I work for Mercer. So we have them checking whether the account has an account manager already. We check LinkedIn. We check whether they have a legitimate website and then a proper email address. If they only have a Gmail or Hotmail that comes in, we don't pass those through. We actually do the qualifying before we actually pass it through. There's got to be a reason why. And we get it. Some people are starting out and that's okay. But one other thing I want to make a point of, if you're starting out, Mitchell talked about the fact that you've got to get quick wins. Sometimes that doesn't actually have to be revenue. Sometimes it's actually about taking costs out. So for me, when I started, we had, as a global organization, we had 35 pieces of technology in our marketing stack. There is no marketer in this world that needs 35 pieces of technology. I can tell you that now. I've been in this game a while, but I just went, right, let's strip this right back, and we've got 4 pieces of technology that we use, and we continue to use, and we continue to invest in it, and I don't care what the latest fads are. In my opinion, until you invest between 5 and 8 years in a piece of technology, because you've spent so much time, people invest in the technology and then don't do the change management attached to it and expect the sales team to know what they're supposed to put in these CRMs, and then you just go, well, sales teams suck because they don't know how to use it, and we haven't trained them. And then we've gone, well, this doesn't work, so let's go find something else. So for me, it's about change management, get the stack right. There's not a perfect stack, by the way. I don't care what anyone says. There's no perfect stack. Just choose a stack that's right for you, and then just build it and work with the vendors on it.
You can't say that last thing and not expect me to ask what's your stack.
Oh,
What are the four software? Come on.
I'm really happy to share. So we use Mercerforce, which is Salesforce. We use Marketo, which is our email management system. And then we have AEM for our website, and then all of our workflow management, etc. We have Rike. That's it. Nothing
Sweet.
else.
Wow. Okay. Mark, you want to mention something?
Yeah, I was just going to jump in. We were talking about sort of change management and quick wins. I think and you were absolutely right. The quick wins don't always need to be revenue focused, but there's a really fine line to draw, and this applies for marketing as it does to any big initiative or any sort of technology rollout initiative. Is the balance between quick wins versus long-term strategy and how you're telling that narrative. Again, there's that, you can get caught in a cycle of just doing quick wins and going, oh, we need to make quick wins, and hang on, they didn't deliver enough, I need to find some more quick wins. And it's kind of like, it's that equivalent of just, sort of popping, sort of eating lollies. It keeps you going for a while, but sometimes you actually have to sit down and have a full meal. So, there's that, you have to be able to tell that narrative up front really, really, really carefully, and make sure that people understand why it is you're doing something. Again, if you're thinking about organisations rolling out new technology, how's that going to impact the operating model? What does that look like over a period of time? If we're simplifying the technology and we're simplifying the way that we do things, how's that going to impact data flowing to other areas of the business? Yes, do those quick wins, but don't get addicted to them. This would be a bit of advice there.
Yeah, I love that, and I think as part of that, it's really important to set expectation. I mean, I remember when we started working with clients, we would go in and we're like, yep, we're gonna get revenue, we get everybody hyped up, and we start a little bit of work, and 4 months in, no revenue has come in, and we've set the expectation wrong, and we get our ass kicked. And it was that process of really understanding that we need to educate our clients that there is a funnel, there is a process, there is a pipeline, and we need to measure these at every single stage. We need to measure this, and then there is that afterward, and there's the next stage, and there is revenue, but this is the path to revenue, and there's going to be a time that it takes to go through that path. But is there something on that point that you want to add, Mitchell, as well? I know there's a lot on the education part and the change management that you have, but yeah, is there something?
I'd say it's also critical today that you've got to, in most medium to large businesses, you've got to really know how to partner and communicate and network outside of your marketing function. You've got to have that positive relationship with the IT team. You've got to talk the same language with those people. You've got to be able to engage. If you're going to have a dispute with them, you've got to not necessarily know how to code HTML5, but have a reasonable, informed debate from a position of some knowledge about what I call business technology as opposed to old school information technology. And you've got to have the HR people on side. Because you're on a change journey, and you've got to be able to critically, as I think we'd all recognise, talk that language of the C level and the B level. And to a degree, they've got to be able to prepared to come down and engage and have some understanding of what marketing can and should do for the business. There's too many typical legal, finance people in most board level positions, and you need to make the case for what it means to invest in enterprise-wide transformation agenda with people, with the process, and getting the technology right. And I agree, you need to keep it simple, but you do need the right tools. And you need to leave behind those legacy systems, that technical debt, and those legacy attitudes as best you can. And that's obviously easier said than done, but a non-stop challenge.
Gotcha. Let's take some questions. What do we got? Please share some of your biggest mistakes. Oh, I got this question. Oh, in marketing career, any takeaways? I'm just debating whether we should talk mistakes. Let's talk mistakes. Mitchell, we got the mic with you. Let's talk mistakes.
Yeah, sure. I'm much more focused on, or naturally orientated to the blue sky and the big picture and wanting to get out in front. And I think it's taken me some time to really learn how to best bring colleagues to business with you, and to realise if you do get out in front too far, the business will be lagging behind. You'll end up with more arrows in your back than anything else. And explaining, communicating, sharing, simplifying, communicating, getting that proverbial alignment. I've probably learnt to spend more time on that and less time fussing or obsessing about what maybe technically has gone wrong with a few campaigns or a few issues, but getting that communication right so that the business is indeed, you are moving in the right direction with the business.
Gotcha. Natalie, what about you? What mistakes have you kind of made during this process of becoming revenue oriented?
I'm happy with mistakes, but not biggest. So I've got a ton of mistakes that I've made. I'm really happy to share those. I don't know if any of them have been the biggest, but I'm happy to share a couple. So the first mistake I made was programmatic. Those of you who know what programmatic is. You remember when programmatic and every conference was a programmatic conference and you're like, yeah, I'm there. And you've only got like 2,000 clients and you still want to do programmatic when really you need like 100,000 clients. So I did that, and that was a palaver. And then my next big mistake was marketing automation. Do you guys know what marketing automation is? Oh my God, 18 months of my life I'm never going to get back. So I did marketing automation thinking this is going to be so good. I'm not going to need that many marketers anymore. So going into it, I was like, yeah, we'll do like 6 journeys. We'll be fine. Like that's how many we need. In the end, we're like, okay, let's do 4, and then, okay, let's do 3, and then in the end we did 2. No one ever actually tells you that 2 marketing journeys can actually equate to like 18 pieces of content that need to be changed like every 3 minutes. So marketing automation, if you're about to start the journey, good luck to you. Don't speak to me about it. I'm sure there are other people that Shane can introduce you to that can tell you how to do it better.
But don't you like all the sticky notes on the wall?
No.
Mark, what about you? What are your thoughts on technology and the next shiny thing?
Oh man.
Or I mean, if you have a better story as well, please share.
My mistakes. Oh look, I've joined a business. I took it over. I restructured it. I managed through the GFC. I've had, it's been lots of mistakes along the way, but hopefully I'm slowly getting into a point where I'm making fewer mistakes than I am getting things right. So that's a good thing. But I can tell definitely from dealing with clients and the work that look, the vast majority of work that we do at the moment, we call unfucking. And that's where people have spent a lot of money on technology thinking it's going to be the silver bullet. It's a big CRM project, big marketing automation project. It's going to solve all of our problems. And then they go, hey, why is this not working? Can somebody come in and diagnose it? We come in and basically we say, it's all fucked and we need to unfuck it. So that's basically, that's kind of what we do. So we've seen that a lot.
And what was that? Oh, yeah. Well, it's all right. It's fine. No, that's
I know.
no, that's all good. No, that's all good. Let's go completely unfiltered. I think that's a big component. What about education? Rolling out a new tech stack. I've been in situations where the decision maker has said, sales team would learn it. It's a CRM. They could figure it out. Where the argument was, hey, should we put them through training, through 10 hours of training, and they're looking at it and they're like, well, there are 10 salespeople, and that's 100 hours, and that's going to cost us, at whatever, $10,000, $20,000, $50,000. Nah, this should be all right. They'll figure it out themselves. What are your experiences with that, of actually going through training processes?
I'll just quickly answer. Very few people do it right, of course, and it's a first budget item in any project that gets cut back. I like the formula. It's not mine, but for every dollar you spend on the subscription for whatever the application might be, you've got to spend at least $3 on training, on the change, on the headset reset. Got to find that button around the back of the head. That's tough to do. You've got to invest in training. We don't do it well at all. It does impede adoption, utilization, and then people are questioning, well, this CRM platform is not producing the revenue, where it's not lined up with the business case. Well, you've cut back on all the soft factors and haven't devoted enough time to it. Everyone knows that, but everyone consistently gets it wrong, at least from what I see.
Right. Any take on that?
Same question?
Yeah, go for it.
I'm going to go with what Mark said earlier. So you can save money now, but in the long term, if you don't train your salespeople properly, you're going to end up with spreadsheets on desktops. And that is a much more expensive exercise. And that's what I'm dealing with at the moment. So in some of my markets, not all.
No, fair enough. I want to just ask another question on that, Natalie. And we'll go back and cover here, because we're getting into sales, and that's a big component of a marketing team becoming sales or revenue oriented. You mentioned that you have a team member that actually calls people. That is sometimes frowned upon in a marketing department, where they're like, that's a sales team job. I'm not going to give them a call. I've actually had this conversation today with one of our clients who that was the attitude. What is your take on that? Like, what is that relationship between sales and marketing? What are your thoughts on that, and where can people go wrong in terms of establishing a strong communication between the two?
Yeah, I think the first part starts with a baseline understanding. So what I've found in some of the markets that we're in is there's a distrust between marketing and sales, because the sales team thinks the marketing team is taking their sales credits. So you need to make it really clear to the sales team that when they action a lead that you've sent through to them, you're not actually taking any sales credits. We just want that acknowledged as revenue that has come from a campaign. The sales credit continues to go to them. If you don't make that clear, the other problem you're going to encounter is they're going to cancel yours as close one, and then they're going to create another lead in whatever system, so for us in Mercerforce, that they've generated. And then what you then have to do is go back and look for the duplicates, because the contacts and all that are the same. So baseline understanding of what each is getting out of that relationship, I think, is the most important part. And for us, it's sales credits. We don't take sales credits from the sales team. That marketing generated, initiated revenue is based on if we generate If you work with us and you help convert for us and we generate income, that helps us to build a better case to get you more marketing dollars next year. Really.
Gotcha. Mr. Mark, go for it.
And there's a lot there around organisational design as well. I mean, we're sort of talking about the culture, talking about change management, and there is a real temptation for organisations to buy a system and hoping it's going to fix the problem. But the real issue quite often is the culture and how we're working together. So really thinking through what is the process that we need to go through to have the best possible outcome. How do the different departments work together? Before you start doing anything with technology is absolutely vital. Do as much process engineering as possible, because once you hit technology, if you haven't asked the right questions and that gets coded in, you're essentially concreting it into your business. And if it's concreted in, then it's going to take you 5 or 6 years to get it out if it's wrong, and it's going to cost you way more than it would do if you actually just went through the process right the first time.
Gotcha. Thank you. All right, let's take another question. Lachlan. Why isn't revenue inherent in the definition of marketing anyway? What are the ways to dispel myths about marketers being spenders but not providers?
Well,
Anyone wants to take that
you
one?
addressed this at the start with your introduction, didn't you? I mean, you were saying it should have always been about growth, about revenue. But in the old days, you couldn't, with traditional old school marketing, without some of the tools we've got today, it was that classic case of 50% of my budget's wasted. I just don't know which 50%. Yeah. You didn't have the nervous system that you can put in place today, at least at a basic level, and get some connectivity and understanding and alignment with what you're doing on the marketing side and what's happening with revenue, with the sales organisation, and some genuine transparency coming into play, and getting an understanding. Hey, that great campaign, that XYZ event, we've always done it, but look, now that we're finally tracking the number of event registrations and what's happening to them, yeah, we're not getting anything out of this. This is just activity that's not productive.
Yeah, it's not achievement. I think there's definitely a little bit, and we get excited. As marketers, we get excited about activities. They're cool. It's just like, oh, we rolled out a new LinkedIn campaign, and we're testing LinkedIn. We're testing YouTube now. It's fun. So, but
don't mistake activity for achievement.
That's right. That's right. Natalie, I want to ask you the next question, and the next one is about timeline. Now, I know this is very dependent on what kind of product are you selling, how much is it, but the next question is, how long do you think it's going to take for me to materialize revenue? The actual question is, where is it? What is the suitable timeline to change current revenue matrix if it's not working?
That's a tough one, because I don't think there's an answer for everyone. For me, to change what I did when I started at Mercer, it took us a solid 6 months to start to show some outcomes. But that was because I was, trying to change processes and global processes and a whole bunch of stuff. If you're a startup and there's 5 of you, it could take, if you're not starting to see leads coming into your pipeline after a month, 5 weeks, then something's actually wrong with what you're doing. Because with UTMs and with the things that you can add to your, sponsored ads or promoted ads on LinkedIn, you should be able to track all that, and you should be able to see the outcomes of those pretty quickly, Shane.
Gotcha. Thank you. Let's take another question. What is the difference between revenue marketing and ROI-driven or performance marketing? Okay. Does anyone want to take that? I can take that one if you want. But you want?
Look, it's jargon. I mean, it's the same thing. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think it's just the shiny thing, and and calling it something that it's been around for a while and people have been calling it that. I think performance marketing is more of an agency term, where agency service provider have said we work on performance and we get you the performance could be leads. It's not necessarily revenue. They might come in and say we're going to do this campaign. We're going to you're going to pay us based on the number of leads that we bring in. And there are so many, loopholes in that and the arguments that are presented that you could very easily move around. But when you're talking about revenue, there's no way that you can go around that. You can't go and say, we're going to bring dollar value into the company and come up with something else. So I think from an agency perspective, that's what is very prevalent. Let's take another question. Actually, let's go back to one of the things that were brought up. I think one of the main topics that keep coming up here is being very wary of the next shiny thing, right? And tools and Natalie, you mentioned marketing automation. Tell us a little bit about that with marketing automation. What was the realization after going through that 18 months of experience? What was the realization that you had that, hey, marketing automation might not work for us? It might work for some other people. Who do you think it might work for? Why didn't it work for you? And I would like to come back to all the panel members about tools and hear a couple of tool stories. But Natalie, you want to share that with us?
Can I ask, is it fair to say, not so much it didn't work, but you've really simplified your approach to executing? Does that make sense?
It just took so long. Like it just took, to actually map out each of the pieces of content to get the business to agree when this happens, they get this piece of comms, or when this happens, someone calls them, or when this happens, we trigger something. For us, from a B2B perspective, it certainly didn't, not that it didn't work. I just lost interest for a while. Actually, the 18 months was actually 6 months where I went, oh, bugger this, it's just too hard. And then we came back to it. But I can tell you we have a customer business where it works beautifully around your superannuation. So getting you to think about, we know when you've moved jobs, we trigger an email to say, hey, you should consolidate your super. Sorry, one of the things Mercer does is superannuation. So you should consolidate. So it works beautifully. And we do find that people consolidate and therefore they're not paying fees, etc. So just because I don't like it doesn't mean it's not going to work for you. Absolutely give it a go if it works. Just remember, I guess the key message from me is it does take a long time. It's like with ABM, so the latest fad. I'm like sitting there thinking, this is what we're going to talk about in 2020 is ABM, but does anyone actually really understand it yet? And I'm yet to meet anyone who can explain it really well to me. So if you're in the audience, I'm really happy to speak to you.
You're talking about a so-called account-based marketing. Yes. I'll make a pitch for a new toy that I think does add value. I think finance as an operating system, supply chain as an operating system, HR has an operating system typically. Marketing does not have an operating system. And there is this new category of MarTech called CMP, Content Marketing Platforms. There's a couple of good Aussie startups, Cooperate here in Melbourne. We're deploying a tool called NewsCred, and it does help address that challenge of lining up the content, taking a real publisher mindset, and how can you efficiently plan your content, how can you produce the content systematically with like these content marketing platforms will say they're the JIRA for marketing. How do you get your workflow and the approvals transparent and happening? How then do you push out your content from more or less a central environment into all the various channels, into your sales enablement system, into your CRM, into your social environments that you play in? And then how do you measure that content? Helping you plan, produce, publish, distribute, and then measure the content is definitely a shiny new object for me that I think adds value.
Gotcha. Mark, what about you? What horror stories do you have of running after shiny objects, which are tools in the marketing world?
I think the way I can sort of contextualize that is within sort of Australia's environment. So I think sort of Australia is in a kind of unique position when it comes to marketing and technology investment in many cases, because you think about how it's worked globally since the GFC. So the GFC hit, and most of the parts of the world were going through, huge financial crisis, which put a lot of emphasis on marketing performance, and cutting back on marketing, and particularly as social media was rising at the same time, the digital channels were rising at the same time. So it was a moment of huge amount of renewed focus on marketing and different channels, and at the same time, a huge amount of focus on performance and how marketing is going to evolve. However, in Australia, as that was while there was many companies, particularly in the US and Europe, who were doing a lot of innovation and change and thinking around how that works and how that's going to change the structure of their organisation. However, in Australia, we had mining, where our economy was doing pretty well. So a lot of business leaders in Australia went, nah, I'm not going to do anything. We're going to wait and see what happens. And then that wait and see what happens then turned into, oh shit, we've got competition coming from all around the world that we didn't see. We've got global, all of a sudden we've got global e-commerce coming, there's all these kinds of things. We need to catch up. And then of course they then start talking to the big technology firms who promise the world, and they're starting to target the marketers, because the marketers were starting to become much bigger technology spenders. But quite often marketers aren't great technology buyers. And so they started promising the world, and all of a sudden it was, oh, you don't need to catch up, you can leapfrog ahead. So all of a sudden the technology around marketing was, here's the silver bullet that's going to save it's going to change your world, it's going to save every problem, and guess what? They all fail. Every single one of them fail, because there is no such thing as a silver bullet. So again, it's just, hang on, let's ignore all of that. What's the one thing that we can do really, really, really well, and let's knock that out of the park, and then we'll build on that success and go forward. Because as soon as you try and go too broad, too wide, I don't care what the technology is, it's going to be a complete screw-up.
Thank you. Does anyone want to add to that? I'm gonna open up the floor and take questions. So prepare your questions. But does anyone, you guys want to add to that? No, that was
we've all seen
pretty solid.
the slow motion
Okay.
train accidents unfold.
Sounds
We've all been
good.
part of it.
Sounds good. All right. Let's take one question from the audience. Is there any question? Even if your question is up here, feel free to leapfrog the queue. Okay, cool. We'll go back here. Yeah, we do.
Sam.
Go for it.
My name is Sam. I have a question for Natalie. So you mentioned that you guys use Untitled and Salesforce. I'm working as an individual. We also use Untitled and Salesforce. So currently we're looking at our Salesforce model, and we're trying to revamp it and kind of switch from last touch attribution to multi-touch attribution. So I'm very curious as to what your Salesforce attribution model is like at the moment. Did you plan that?
No. Have you?
I think Mitchell can answer that question.
As Sam said, we're challenged with that attribution.
So sorry. Did everyone hear the question? Yep. No. Okay. So the question was, they're using Salesforce and Marketo, and what they currently are on is last point of attribution, meaning that they will, if a lead comes in, they will attribute all the value of that lead to the last channel that came through. So if somebody has, first heard about them on the news and then went to their website and then saw an ad and then went to the website again, they will give all that value to that last website visit. And they're trying to change that to a multi-touch attribution where they would give value to every single touch point they had before. That was the question, that was a statement, and the question was, how does Mercer go through that experience, and what are their thoughts about attribution?
Mitchell's like, have you got the answer? I don't have an answer for you, Mitchell, is the answer to that. Because I, like I said earlier, we keep it really, really simple. So we don't think about attribution in that way. I don't go, and I think my philosophy to that is very similar to my philosophy to lead scoring. I don't go, that gets 5 points, and that gets 10 points, and that gets 20 points, and the total of that is, you get bits. I just go, where did that campaign come from? Where did that contact us request come from? And because we have UTM codes on on all of our campaigns from a digital perspective, we can track all that. I can tell you that if Mitchell sent a lead in with a request, I can tell you it was from LinkedIn. I can tell you the product that advertisement came from. But I don't go, oh, you know, Mitchell also came to that event and therefore I should attribute some of that to that event as well. I just think that some of those things, Sam and Mitchell, they're just brand activities. And as a business, you should just accept, as I said earlier, that part of your marketing budget should be attributed to brand. Otherwise, you actually spend more time, your salespeople are justifying or actually sitting there going, this is what we do, this is who we are. So I'm sorry.
Is
Sorry,
that going to be a
Sam.
big change?
Are you going to stay at Ansell or you want to still come to Mercer?
For a more simpler life, Sam.
Shots fired.
We talked about lead scoring briefly earlier.
Yes.
Lead scoring for you, it's turned off, it's ignored, it's helpful, it's turned off.
Turned off, nothing. No MQLs, no lead scoring.
What are your thoughts on that, Mitchell?
I think if you're getting a volume of leads, depending on your business model, lead scoring has the potential to help filter where your inside sales, your sales development, your sales resource should focus. It's definitely not a set and forget exercise. That's when it definitely becomes irrelevant. It can be a huge debating topic. Probably if you're not going to focus on it, yes, ignore it or turn it off. But if you're getting a volume of leads and you want to help your people as to where they should focus when they look at that list view in their CRM in the morning, lead scoring should be a useful indicator, guide. And if it's not, yes, turn it off.
And that's an interesting point because we've had the conversation about this as well, where you mentioned that it might work for people who have a larger volume, right? And it might be a very clear correlation between whether lead scoring is valuable for you and your average contract value or the lifetime value of your customer. So if if you are doing deals that your average contract value is $50,000, it's it's $500,000. You might not get a lot of those, and therefore a human touch might be a lot more effective than saying out of the 20 or 50 leads that came through this month, let's take them through this journey and really evaluate the 4 that are most qualified. But if you're getting hundreds and thousands, that lead scoring might come in place and be a lot more valuable. So I remember we kind of touched on this before. Is there anything, Mark, on that point, or should we give another question a go?
I think you're just sort of touching on it there from my perspective. I mean, well, and you was also, which is, what's your business model? Like, what are you selling? What's the process behind it? Are you selling obviously a service or a commodity? Is it a good? Are you selling some kind of experience? Are you selling a group of things that's going to transform the customer in some way? What is it about? And then make sure that you're thinking about the metrics and the process behind that allow you to tell that story. Lead scoring might be absolutely valid for the right business model, and having that set of metrics and those numbers behind it may help the organisation make quicker and better decisions. If it does, use it. If it doesn't, get rid of it.
Gotcha. Thank you. All right, we're going to do the last 3 questions, and we're going to take 2 from here and 1 from the audience. So we'll do the first 2. Where would you tell a student who's not being taught about revenue marketing to find sources to absorb information and learn the lingo to be better prepared? Sources of information. Where do I learn? Who wants to go first? Mitchell.
Without overwhelming yourself, I think you've got to read and absorb as much as you can. You've got to, I'll throw it in. We talked about it earlier. For example, I think the most innovative, high-impact marketing brand today by far is Tesla. Elon Musk had his 4th quarter results call earlier this morning. I'm a bit of a Tesla nut. And I listened to the call. He started off by saying, we hit for calendar year 2019, $20.5 billion in revenue without spending a single dollar on paid advertising. That was his opening statement. $20.5 billion in revenue, not a single dollar on paid advertising. Now, he's done a lot of other marketing activity. He's got this huge army of social media bloggers and YouTubers, etc. But to not spend a single dollar on any form of paid advertising, I think there's huge lessons there. None of us have Elon Musk as our chief executive, and maybe we wouldn't want. But there's lessons there for how could we apply what they're doing with their transparency, with their encouragement of the social followers, with the openness that they have. You can go to the Tesla website, you can take anything, you can incorporate it into your YouTube channel. You'll never get a legal notice from Tesla saying take that down, even if you're saying Musk is a charlatan and a con man, whatever. They just let it all happen and let it all hang out. And they've got one of the most powerful brands in the world. They're going to upset their next trillion-dollar business for sure. And how they're doing it is phenomenal. And I think learning from as much as possible from those people on the so-called cutting edge and what makes that work and how could you apply that in your context. This army of commentators now and bloggers, Scott Galloway is a great one, Joe Rogan talks a lot about marketing, absorbing what those people are saying and synthesizing it into your own interpretation, how you can apply it in your context, I think is a never-ending story. And if you're truly passionate about marketing, that's what you're doing. You're listening, you're absorbing, you're doing formal learning, and you're constantly soaking that up. And how can that make business sense in my context? How can that advance my career? How can I apply those lessons that are obvious when you get your antenna out and start having an understanding of what people are doing and saying on the proverbial cutting edge?
Gotcha. If I could, no, go for it. Go for
If I
it.
build on that a little bit, because I think you're absolutely right. I think one thing that, if you think about the term revenue-based marketing, what it's telling you a little bit. Okay, so if you think about the different execs inside an organisation, the CFO is usually focused on cost. You've got the CIOs obviously focused on technology. You've got CTOs focused on future technology and future risk, all those things. But the person who's focused on revenue is the CEO. Okay, so revenue-based marketing is telling you find a way to communicate directly with the CEO about what he cares about. Okay, so you're not going to find that most of the time in marketing material that exists. Sorry to say this, but marketers are quite good at mixing amongst themselves and talking about their own language and creating their own jargon. Revenue-based marketing is how do you communicate with the CEO? So learn the language of the CEO, and then I think you'll be really good at working out how to shape it up.
Yeah, and if I could add to that, in our agency, one of the things that we do everybody has to go through that is everybody does 1 hour of training per day, right? And the reason behind that is for us, marketing is such a fast-moving field that you cannot catch up if you go to school. The first thing I would say, this is true when we're hiring. If you're going through school, I would say drop out of school if you're doing marketing. Take that money and invest it in online courses that are out there. Online courses are not the big ones. I'm not talking Udemy. I'm not talking LinkedIn. I'm not talking the Linda from LinkedIn. I'm not talking about those. Yes, there are some courses that are good over there. I would find experts in the fields that you're looking at. If you're looking at SEO, find the best SEO person that is out there. They usually have really amazing courses. Yeah, they're going to charge for it. Brian Dean charges $3,000 USD for his course. Absolutely worth it. Reforge has another $5,000 that you go through the course. Absolutely worth it. Those are some of the people that I think you should take notes of if you wanna understand those fields a little bit better. Another platform that is absolutely amazing for training is CXL.com, where they collate this amazing knowledge from practitioners and they teach it on the platform. So I think the first thing, the challenge with universities right now is because marketing is so fast-paced, they cannot keep up. Sorry, it changes every 6 months, goddamn thing, right? So looking at people who are practicing it becomes super important. where did this realization come from? This realization came from dealing with CEOs, because we had to basically sell to CEOs and then within 3 to 6 months give them results. And we noticed that, hey, I'm a marketing expert and I studied marketing is not going to cut it. We need results that are getting, we need activities that are generating results today. The people who know that are practitioners, and they usually have their own courses. Absolutely worth paying those $2,000, $3,000 for those courses and getting education from there. Okay, this went. We'll do one more question. We'll do it from the audience. You want to go? Go for it.
Yeah, okay. So I think one of the things that I think we're in a company where we're coming back to like trying to re-strategize everything, so in that kind of growth phase. One question that I have is, if you want to get back down to basics, do we look at what our ideal customer is and actually agree on that in the organisation? So I'm trying to say that within the company now, which is like, can't just be everything to everybody. Who's actually our ideal, and there's probably a couple of them. But how do you evaluate who that is? What sort of factors do you look at to make sure? Yes, obviously it's profit, but are there other factors that you look at, and how do you evaluate?
So just to repeat the question is, how do I figure out who my persona and ideal customer is in order to market to them? Is that correct? How do I figure out who they are?
And also let the rest of the business know that this is who we should be going for, because they're of most profit to us.
Okay. How do you identify who your ideal customer profile is and communicate that across the company? Natalie, you want to give that a go?
Depends on how you define profit is the other thing that I'm thinking about, because profit doesn't necessarily mean the person that gives you the most amount of money, because you might have influencers who are just as valuable to your organization. You know, the Seth Godin has a really great quote that says, when you market to everybody, you reach nobody. So you're never going to agree with everyone in the business about who the right people are. The right thing to do is to get consensus on who your target audience actually is, and it might just be the first level. You might not even go down to the next couple of levels. It might just be that first level, and then trial through A/B testing, LinkedIn, digital marketing, social media, a lot of that, and it's not expensive to try to see if you've hit the mark with that audience. So I don't know if that's helped, but we don't get that deep into the profitability component because we believe that when we invest in our audience and we're really clear about who our audience is, that they may not buy from us today, but they will buy from us at some point.
Thank you very much. All right. Now, on that question, we're going to kind of wrap it up for tonight. Before we do, I want to give a shout out to The Shift. Now, The Shift is a publication who we're going to get this whole thing written up and published on The Shift. So definitely check out The Shift. Also, if you're interested, there are a lot more articles that are there. But The Shift is and it's theshift.io. .media, theshift.media, and Andrew over there, if you want to have a chat to Andrew. But all of this is going to be, we're going to write it up, we're going to turn it into an article, so make sure you check it out as well. We will send it on our Slack channel. So if you have not become part of our Slack channel, Growth Colony, if you go to growthcolony.org/Slack, you can join our Slack group. We share the video of this talk, we shared the article, and everything that associated with it. Now, last thing that I should mention are our next events. Is that correct? Yes, we got a webinar that is coming up, and that's on Drawboard and the work that they've done around analytics to drive profitability and revenue within the organization. They're a SaaS product, and analytics has been a massive driver. They're a startup over here. They've raised a couple of $1 million, and Nathan is their head of marketing. So it's going to be a very interesting talk. It's more in the weeds and talking about the details. So definitely check that out. That's going to be a webinar. Our next event is going to be on ABM.
Hey. Natalie's favorite topic.
So We will send you the recording for sure. But the next talk is going to be on ABM, account-based marketing, and how that is impacting in B2B. And really, what is it? We've got the marketing director of DocuSign for APAC, and Natalie Mendes, the head of ABM for APAC. Actually, I think it's global head of ABM from SaaS. And so definitely make sure to check that event. It's going to be in 2 months' time. It's going to be on 12th of March, Thursday. So check that out. Would love to see you over here. That's an actual event. And on that note, thank you so much for coming today. And we definitely look forward to seeing you later. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.